Barbary with Project TEDD, and today we have with us Miss Karen Garner from Post ISD. Karen had participated in our pilot training for our teacher training workshops here in Region 17. And so we wanted to ask her just a little bit about her experiences and to tell us a little bit more about, her experience working with students with dual diagnosis and special education. So welcome, Karen. I appreciate you coming today.
Thank you.
And so when your director initially approached you about participating in Project TEDD, how did you feel?
To be honest, at first I said, this is a COVID year, I don't have time for that. But then when I got to looking at what it was about, she gave me some information about what it was about. It's a training that's so relevant for today because of pandemic. We've got a lot of trauma going on with our kids. Plus, being in a rural district, we have a very low income type of student, and so we do have a lot of students that have a lot of trauma in their homes or crisis, and so it was one of those, it's too good to pass up. It's a training that will be meaningful. So I went back to her and said, okay, changed my mind, I'll do it. And I've been very glad that I did.
So Karen, can you describe to us how did you initiate your training? Like, what was your plan? Like, how are we going to do this in your district?
Okay. Well, to be honest, I didn't have a plan at first, but I went to our special education director in our district. Now it's easy for me because small rural district, she's actually housed in my building, so we talk a lot. So I went to her and she said, we discussed about, should we just do a special ed training where we just brought in the special ed teachers, or should it be bigger than that? And I told her, I said, I really feel like gen ed teachers need to be involved because they're the ones who spend so much time with the students. And so she sent me to my principal. So my principal, Dawn Jones, and I sat down and looked over. I showed her kind of what the program had taught, the different modules, and decided that especially right now, it's hard to get a lot of training in because we've got so many other things with the COVID going on, technology trainings, and everybody's just stretched to the limit. So there wasn't going to be a lot of chance for multiple trainings this year. So we just are together, I kind of decided, and she agreed, that maybe an overview of the whole thing would work best. And then what piqued people's interest, we could go back and visit at a later time when we had more time for training, maybe in the summer or before school starts when we do get together as teacher groups. And so we decided maybe an overview. Well, we just happened to have, which worked out perfectly, we had a work day coming up. And it was a teacher training work day. So she was able to put me on the schedule.
Oh, okay.
And it was a time that all the teachers were required to attend in our building. So TAs, that was not just teachers, it was teachers, TAs, and administration for our building were all required to be there. So she put me on the schedule for an hour of that time, which worked out beautifully. And so I just took what y'all had done as far as PowerPoints, and I used that overview PowerPoint that we used for the 5-minute video that there was no way to make 5 minutes.
You did great.
And we took that I took that 5-minute PowerPoint and I went through and re-looked at all the main points of it. And then I pulled some activities from the different modules to help support those modules. So I kind of did all 6 modules in one.
Well, how do you think, the knowledge and, just the skill set, the information that you learned in the Project TEDD teacher training, how do you think that's going to influence not only your work, but the work of others in your district?
Okay, it already has a bit,
okay,
which is kind of nice with just being a couple months since the training. Like I said, our district has a lot of kids that have some trauma in their home and things. So one of the things that I did decide with my administrator when I went to her about the training is that we needed to not just train the special ed staff, but we needed to have some gen ed teachers involved because they're the ones with the kids all day. I pull them out, but it's 30 minutes at a time, so they're with them all day. So we started with that, and the impact has already started. We've had several teachers come and talk to me about, have you noticed these things going on with this child? Or when we sat in like I just met with grade levels recently because it's progress update time, And several of them were like, we're kind of concerned, like we've got some concerns. And for some of the things you said, we're seeing now, or we are recognizing, we've probably been seeing it for a while, but we're recognizing it as an actual trait of perhaps dual diagnosis, not just that's their disability type thing, like overshadowing, like we just talked about in the training. So we've already started to see some impact with our teachers having more knowledge of what to look for.
I can kind of relate to that too. You know, as an LSSP, you know, formerly working in the school districts, I almost had a sense of guilt even thinking about, you know, all the students that maybe should have been referred to me but weren't, or the students that I should have been involved with, you know, for behavior management, even related services, you know, providing counseling or further, you know, more in-depth consultation. And so there was almost, like I said, this sense of guilt, like how many students did I miss? And so, you know, reviewing the teacher feedback that we received from the pilot training, it seemed like a lot of teachers even had that sense of, this reminds me a lot of students that I've had in the past, and, you know, even students that I work with now. So I'm glad to hear, you know, it's really shaping the way educators think about our students with intellectual and developmental disabilities and their mental health needs. It's like you said, you know, the diagnostic overshadowing, we just attribute a lot of these behavior problems. Well, you know, they had an intellectual disability. What did you expect? And that's simply faulty thinking. And so you had mentioned, you know, maybe having some smaller breakouts for those that are interested in particular topics.
Yes.
Do you anticipate, you know, just the follow through, you know, those that had expressed an interest, do you think they would actually, you know, pursue that additional training, or
I do think they would. I do, and the feedback sheets, you know, we've looked at those, and you know, probably some strategies, like the module on strategies for behavioral supports and for academic supports. Maybe in a PLC in the future. Our PLCs are shorter; they're only 35 minutes, but that could be adapted and even done in more than one PLC. So there may be some chances to do some of that.
So if you were to give any advice to future teachers, you know, interested in pursuing Project TEDD, what would you tell them? Like, why do you think participating in this kind of project is a good idea, or why would you suggest that they do?
Okay. I would say it's very worth your time because it is a training that is going to open your eyes. You're going to see your students in a different light. One of the things that I started thinking about when I was preparing to do my training for my campus was, you know, we work with the younger kids, and usually the mental illness is not, as you teach in the training, it's not diagnosed until like later adolescence. But we're the area where it starts, where those problems begin is in the elementary school. And so if we can catch those problems when they're starting, and we can put some supports in, maybe it won't progress to that point. Maybe we'll never actually get to dual diagnosis. We can intervene early, do the early intervention. And so when I was training, I was thinking how helpful this is, whatever level you're at. One, to catch those kids if you work with older students that are dealing with these things already, but also in our area to stop some of it, maybe before it even gets to that point. So I would say it's very eye-opening training, and it also will help you help your gen ed teachers know how to service those kids that are in their classroom every day that are the problem kids. They're the kids that are demanding attention, or maybe they're not even demanding attention, they're refusing to do work. We have several in our school that's what teachers were like, that's so-and-so who's like shut down and won't work, and we can't figure out how to help them. It gives you those ideas on what can we do instead of I don't know what to do, so now I'm just going to let it go, to what can we put in place, what can we do to make them successful.